Well, you talk about Pharaoh's pursuit subsequently in Exodus 14. And so when God says, I'm going to work through David, David's singled out for special treatment. Satan was able, the more we have, more prophetic visibility we have, the more Satan can focus his stratagems. And the population of Canaan, we have the post-flood of Nephilim. That's mentioned in Genesis 6. It happened also after that, after the flood. And they're encountered in Canaan when Moses sent the 12 spies. They came back in Numbers 13:33. Says, there are Nephilim in the land, these fallen ones. And we are like grasshoppers before them. We're pretty hard on those 10 guys. Remember that Og, the king of the giants, was 13 feet tall. Think about going up against a warrior like that. Serious problems. The Rephaim, these were a race of giants, except they're more than just giants. We encounter them in Genesis 14, 15, and following. The Moabites called them the Emim. The Ammonites called them the Zamzumim. There's others. The same term is also translated dead. Isaiah tells us that they're not eligible for resurrection. Strange thing. We have Arba and Anak and his 7 sons, the Anakim. We have Og, the king of Bashan, in Deuteronomy 3, and so on. It's interesting that Joshua is told to wipe out every man, woman, and child of those tribes. He does almost. But the places that he fails to do so, in the Golan Heights, in Gaza, Ashdod, and so forth, it's the places that the PLO have their conclaves today. Strangely, strange stuff. And Goliath and his 4 brothers. We took a 4x4 up in the Golan Heights. There is a monument up there that's sort of like a Stonehenge called Gilgal Rephaim. It's never been excavated. We know very little about it. What's strange is you can only tell what it is from the air. It's about 5 circles, 20-ton stones, dated about 3000 BC. It's on a flat plateau, only visible from the air, about 10 miles. And there's a number of these that have never been excavated, never been studied yet. But, and the Anakim are just an example where Joshua is told to wipe them out. But verse 22 says, there was none of the Anakim left in the land of the children of Israel. Only in Gaza and Gath and Ashdod there remained. I think that's interesting. Kingdom of Og, in the kingdom of Bashan, which reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei, there remained of the remnant of the giants, that is, there weren't giants, there's actually the word Rephaim. For these did Moses smite and cast them out. Bashan was the final region of these Rephaim. And the king of Bashan had an iron bed 9 cubits long. That's somewhere between 13 and 16 feet, depending what cubit you use. There's a strange passage, I haven't had anyone explain to me, in Psalm 22, which reads as if it's by Jesus Christ as he hung on the cross. My God, why hast thou forsaken me, and so on. Verse 12, apparently, if you visualize Jesus saying this, he says, the bulls of Bashan have encircled me. What on earth does that mean? I have no idea, but I think it warrants some very serious research. And of course, Isaiah indicates that the Rephaim shall not live, they are deceased, they shall not rise. Therefore thou hast visited and destroyed them and made their memory to perish, and so forth. There's a passage in Daniel, most of us are familiar with Daniel 2, Nebuchadnezzar's polymetallic image, the gold, silver, brass, iron mixed with clay, you all know that. In Daniel 7, there's another vision given to Daniel directly, different idioms used, but the same subject, basically the sequence of empires, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and then Rome in 2 phases. Most of you have studied this. But I want to focus on something strange, and that's this iron mixed with clay. What on earth does that mean? Now, for many decades, I, like most conservative Bible scholars, have taught that clay is people. You're the potter, I'm the clay. It's an idiom. It's actually in Aramaic. It's miry clay. Daniel explains the miry clay. The miry clay is clay made from mire, or is dust. Dust is usually synonymous, idiomatically, with death. Whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, Daniel switches to a personal pronoun, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. The grammar here requires that the they have to be something other than the seed of men, or it doesn't make sense. What are they? I don't know. Are they Nephilim? That would echo maybe what Jesus said, as the days of Noah were, so shall the days of the coming of the Son of Man be. Or are they the results of genetic manipulation that's gone awry? Don't know. The context of Nebuchadnezzar's dream implies that they constitute a political constituency. They're numerous, not just a few exceptions. Well, we've gone through a whole bunch of concerns about the whole area of genetic manipulation. Something else you might find interesting about bacteria. These are single-celled elements. Remember, these bacteria are single cells. They've discovered they do quorum, what they call quorum sensing. In your body, you may have bacteria that are dangerous to you, but they're not numerous enough to cause a problem. What the bacteria do is they take a roll call. They find out if there's enough of them around to make it worthwhile to attack. If there is, they attack. This is true of E. coli, Salmonella, and 30 others, a whole bunch of them. It reminds you of the passage in Luke 14, which suggests that what king going to war against another king sitteth not down first and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. Quorum sensing. Scientists are hoping to discover how they communicate, because if they can interdict that communication, they can render those bacteria harmless. Interesting stuff. Well, we've talked about most of these other things, that retroviruses can skip generations, and the whole idea that you can engineer directable intruders. That was a theme of a popular movie. Mission Impossible 2 dwelt on the idea of engineering both the malady and its cure as a form of economic and political power. Now, there are three technologies that we're trying to follow closely. One is what's called nanotechnologies. This is in the computer field where they're learning how to make molecular-sized robots, machines. They can make machines that do things. Very primitive at the moment, but they're working hard in that area. The goal of nanotechnology is to make molecule-sized machines. The goal of robotics, that's another field of study, their goal is to make self-modifying sentient machines, machines that we can reprogram themselves. In other words, computer-driven devices. There's a third field called genetics, whose goal, in part, is the self-replication of manipulated entities. Now, what's spooky is you've got to recognize that these three technologies are destined to converge. The nanotechnologists and the robotics and the geneticists all talk to each other, and they all have something to contribute to each other. What is the goal of the convergent technologies? To create self-replicating, sentient machines capable of directable diseases targeting specific groups or individuals. It seems feasible to engineer a virus that will attack only certain combinations of DNA, certain genetic groups, or maybe even individuals. There are people in history that if they had that technology, it would be terrifying. There's the most audacious of all these projects that I've run into is the Clone Jesus project. There are serious people that are going to attempt, or are attempting, to get a DNA sample from some appropriate religious relic, do a nuclear transfer to a stem cell, and there are 40 women that have volunteered, virgin women, that to be the surrogate mother. One of these projects claims a target date of December 25th of this year. Now, this may just be a fundraising scam. I wouldn't put too much on it, and it's also, at this stage especially of technology, absurdly risky. Dolly took 276 failures, and those failures put the mother at risk, not just the embryo. Now, the other side of this is I think, kind of amusing. If they use the Shroud of Turin to try to get one of these DNA samples, which is one of the speculations, they may not get the guy they think they're getting. There are a couple of scholars that believe, they may not be right, but they believe that that shroud is the shroud of Jacques de Molay. He was the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar. He was executed in a parody of the crucifixion back in 1314, and there are some scholars that think that's really where the shroud came from. So if they're right and they succeed at getting a clone here, they may not get the guy they were thinking they're getting. And of course, this is going to be, there's already novels starting to come out in which they try to clone Jesus but really get the Antichrist and that sort of thing. But there is a strange verse in Revelation 17, verse 11. Most of you that have studied Revelation 17 come across this verse speaking of the beast that was and is not, and even he is the eighth, but is of the seventh and goeth into perdition. What does that verse mean? I have no idea.